I mean, we thought that, oh my gosh, I would walk down the street. I would walk down the street in Kailua, and I would think, oh, there's somebody I know. I know that. I know she's there. You know, you thought you saw your friends because it was such a big change. And when we said we were moving here, people actually, it was like, are you moving to like the moon? It seemed like Hawaii was so far and so different. Do they celebrate Thanksgiving? Do they have Halloween here? I mean, I got some really interesting questions. So anyway, do you have any questions for us now at all about anything? Okay.
I don't know if you
Michael?
pointed out that Donald had a substantial amount of experience in Hawaii prior to you, right?
Oh, okay. So we're going to let Donald tell you a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I was an Army brat growing up and a Presbyterian. So I had little or no knowledge of Judaism other than I thought the girls were attractive. So make a long story short, I was stationed out here in the 7th, 8th, and my freshman and sophomore years in high school, and had a wonderful time. And when I got ready to retire, I started looking around to see what I wanted to do. And I had some outplacement, 4 months of outplacement. And although the process was interesting, at the end of the day, what I really wanted to do was not do what I'd been doing for the last 30 years and go to Hawaii. And the guy who was doing the work, the placement work, said, that's a great idea. I can tell you exactly what it's going to cost. And he got really excited about it. And the more excited he got about it, I got excited about it. And then my kids got excited about it. And then we figured out, well, how do we convince Sandy? Because, you know, we had made a home in Ridgewood.
Big home. Yeah, so it was on our second trip here to Hawaii. We came the first time after first time for me after Tamara's bat mitzvah at a trip. And I noticed that when we were on the island here, like Donald knew his way around everywhere. He was so relaxed. It was no more Wall Street. Everything was calm. And he drove us all around the island. He said, there's I surf there. And we ate there. And so I go, oh my gosh, I used to have to give him directions sometimes to the synagogue, you know, over and over again in Ridgewood, but in Hawaii, in the island, he knew it all. So I thought, something really is different. So then we came back here after Tiffany's bat mitzvah. So she really wanted to go to Disney World, but we said, okay, we're going back.
We twisted her arm.
We're going back to Hawaii. So we did. And it's that point that Donald was already out of Wall Street. And he said to me at that trip, I want to move back here. So I went into the ocean in Waikiki and I was on a float and I'm floating around thinking, oh my gosh, this is big. But eventually it took a lot of Shabbats to rework this in my brain saying, it's the right time and we're going to do this. So we did it. It was difficult in the sense of leaving all you and Temple Israel and of course a lot of family. At the same time, it was very exciting to be starting something new. We had been married by that time 25 years and figure, why not, right? So you do what you think is right, and we did. The synagogue gave us a testimonial that we will always remember because, so Evan Dawkins gave a speech about us heading to Hawaii and what's that going to look like for the Jewish community here. We just reread that this morning. It was a beautiful speech. We gave speeches and then we had a big party, right? Because we got married here at the Ridgewood Temple. So a lot of you were there. So that was like, wow. And of course the Maccabees, right? the
Yeah.
band played that night. And we had about 200 people there, and it was just like a real
Well, it was
first time
it was
wedding.
also a fundraiser for the temple.
It was a fundraiser we had too.
The
It worked out well.
the one point I want to make is it worked out much better than we expected because all of our children came to Hawaii. One went to college here, the other one in Southern California, and then we still have the two daughters here. And our son is in LA. So you know, it's good because we have the family right here, and they're Jewish. They're still practicing.
Yeah, so that's nice. So you might say, like, if you have any questions or not, but how did we meet? You know, we met at Rutgers. And the first time I met Donald, I often questioned him about, don't you feel guilty about that? Like your parents aren't staying with us, whatever. He said, what's guilt? I don't know what guilt is. And then I said, okay. I said, well, I decided that this guy, the no guilt factor was a good reason to really like this guy. So that was one of the things that attracted to it. He also at Rutgers, going down College Ave on one of our first dates or so, he took leaves off the trees and ate them. I said, oh, how strange is this guy? But I thought, well, his knowledge of edible foliage was really pretty good. You know, he had been an Eagle Scout. He often wore aloha shirts and what we would call flip-flops, but we call slippers here. And there was something about him that was very different. On our honeymoon to Cape May, he actually went out on a surfboard. And I got to watch my really new husband surf. And I went, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. He knows how to surf too. So I was taken with all this. When we got engaged, we were at a restaurant in New York City called Hawaii Kai. Now, some of you who've been to Hawaii know there is a place, Hawaii Kai. It had a big blue drink.
It was kind of cheesy.
Yeah, it was definitely more plastic than real, plumerios, volcanoes. And I thought, this is so romantic. Here we are, my surfer husband, and we're at a restaurant. And he gave me an engagement ring, which is 8 times too big. And I wore it on my thumb that night. I'm thinking, oh, this is so great. And in the middle of that ring was a Jewish star. Now, somewhere in the family, it got passed down because it was great-great-grandparents, and they had engraved a Jewish star in the center of the ring. So I said, oh, okay, that's a good sign.
It really wasn't engraved. The diamonds were set in such a way that they aligned to form the Magen David.
Yeah. Now, when we were at the one thing that stands out in my mind, I know this is silly, but I thought Donald was very brave in many, many ways. My roommates and I, we rented, like all college roommates, an apartment on the base floor of a big house. Donald came in, and my room was like the size of a pantry off the kitchen. I'm sorry, but it was the pantry off the kitchen where I put a bed and a chest of drawers. One day, my roommates and I were going to clean up. Donald comes in, and Donald says, what's there on this bench? It's a big bench against the wall. He picks it up like this, and thousands of cockroaches fall out of the
big, little, small.
Like thousands. And my roommates and I, there's 4 of us running around screaming. Just screaming, and he's just walking around like this. So he goes out the back door and throws it out the back door. So I said, gosh, he's really brave. I mean, he really is.
I didn't eat any of the cockroaches.
Yeah, no, he didn't. No, we don't do that. So when we came to Temple Israel, we pretty much hopped on right away. I took the biblical Hebrew class with Rabbi Marins. Donald said, you take that class. You take that class. And I said, because the children are going to be learning Hebrew, you take it. And I go, no, I'm not good with language. I'm not going to take it. You take it. So it's back and forth, back and forth. Well, it ends up, he says, you take the class and then I'll take it after you. And that's what he did. Right? So after learning to read Hebrew, that started me on biblical Hebrew and my venture with leading services and everything. But I do want to bring up the base of my growth was our Shabbat together at Temple Israel with the group. And it was, Marvin Amsterdam, the Shrivers, Mr. Goodman, Harry Grant. This is where Eli's shaking his head, he remembers. This is where I got started in my Judaism. In this small, way, and watching Mr. Goodman read Torah and having his eyes tear up because he became so emotional, especially as he grew older and it was harder and harder for him physically. That was the base of my passion to do everything I could possibly do and connect as many people to Temple Israel as possible. Do you have any questions or anything to say at this point?
Yeah, no, I think we decided that we were going to live a Jewish lifestyle. We became kosher. We celebrated Shabbat, and we supported most of the Jewish activities, including the softball teams. And I took great pleasure when we were able to be competitive, if not, in those rare occasions, actually beat the Presbyterians. Because their average age was about 20, 22, and our average age was pushing 40.
Yeah. So
softball team.
Yeah, that's
Softball.
Softball.
I didn't know there
Yeah.
was a softball team there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we used to sit on the sidelines cheering them too. Yeah, I remember. And then there were these practices for the band at Michael and Joe's house that we always like to go to because that was a lot of fun. So I don't know if Michael has anything to say about that. You're muted.
Don't bring up painful memories.
No, he's muted. Michael, you're muted if you want to say anything.
Go ahead, say.
Yeah, she wasn't there. She doesn't know. I don't know. She didn't have to listen to it. You didn't come to any rehearsals at our house, did you? You came to a few.
A few.
Yeah. Hey, Donald, you know what I want to ask you, though, since you now learned about Jewish guilt. Did you encounter any from your immediate friends and family when you announced that you were going to convert?
No. It was very surprising to me that the single most observant and religious person on both sides of my family, my grandmother Armstrong, who read from the Bible every day, celebrated Shabbat on Saturdays, much as we do. They were all so happy that I found such a nice wife that they said, take him, just don't give him back. And so it worked out. And we couldn't be happier, even to this day.
Yeah. So one thing we learned very much, and it was in the grounds of Temple Israel, was kindness to strangers. And actually, in my entire lifetime from Temple Israel on, that was my biggest venue for giving back for mitzvot. I would call, I got lists of real estate agent list of new people moving in. And I would call them, I'd cold call. Because my background was marketing. So I did cold calling and I said, oh, welcome to the community. And you get people who just moved in a couple of months ago. And I'd go on with my spiel and I hit it like quite a few that were Jewish. At the time, one in particular family, they not only got involved, but he eventually became president of Temple Israel. So with that outreach, we had a ladies' night out. I think you remember some of you, where we'd get together in the evenings and welcome new people. It was just such a joyous time to be involved in the growth and meeting people at, and of course our baseline too of members before we even came in too.
I had to laugh though, because sometimes I would hear her on the phone and the guy really wanted to come, but he wasn't Jewish. So that was a foreshadowing of things to come.
Yeah, I go on and they go, but I'm not Jewish, but somebody had a Jewish sounding last name, so. Wow. And one of the
I have a
chapters,
question for you.
yes, Barry.
We don't know each other, and I've only been with Temple Israel with my wife Tamara for about 10 years. But my
Yeah,
question is, were you able to transfer your enthusiasm for Judaism and for growing a temple in Honolulu?
Good question, and we'll enjoy answering that. So when Donald will start, because he is past president of the conservative congregation.
But
Yeah.
we're going to circle back to that. But yes, we have significantly expanded the affiliated membership within Congregation Sof Ma'arav since we've been here. We have expanded what we do, not only as our own congregation, but in conjunction with the other congregations on Oahu, the island that we're on. And we're in the process of expanding that even further to the outer islands. So, and there are a variety of reasons for doing that. And it both raises our profile, it allows us to speak with a unified voice on issues like anti-Semitism and those sorts of things. It gives us political power, and it also creates a network that's very useful when stuff happens. So it's an opportunity to really build an effective network amongst all the congregations throughout all the islands.
And the name of the benefactors of this organization that we're in a 2-year cohort, and this has just come about this year, to unify all the Jews from all the islands. Okay, so we have Kauai, Maui, the Big Island. Into one is called Nitzavim, and it's produced by Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundations, where they gave back to the community here for many, many years when they lived here. And you see their names on plaques all over the island. So we're in conjunction with that. But to answer Barry's question, when we moved here, I was used to all my New York and New Jersey friends. So I got a call one night from my daughter when Donald and Tamara were here scouting out Oahu, and she says, "Mom, we found a congregation for you. You're gonna love it." I walked in and Naomi Olstein asked me to do Musaf, and I did it. So I went, whoa, this is big. Because for me, there had to be that cementing. That was what cemented it. So every Shabbat we would go on Saturday, and we'd embrace a lot of people from New York and New Jersey are here on Oahu. And that was our jump off point. And from there, I went right into welcoming for them. Donald became a vice president and then a president for 10 years. right?
And you succeeded me for 4.
Yeah, so between the two of us, there's been 14 years of the presidency. Now,
But she has another 6 years to go because the prior 2 past presidents were Robert and Bernice Littman, who had successive 10-year terms.
yeah, so anyway,
That
It's a little
sounds like a
different.
terrible thing, but the short answer is we only have committee meeting members and an annual meeting together 3 times a year. So we're small enough that all the work gets done pretty much either face to face or
On the
through
phone.
direct contact on the phone.
oh,
I think
so
it's great
here,
that you did move forward and continue to grow forward in Hawaii. And that
Mhm.
enthusiasm, it seems like it's blossomed in the tropical climate.
Absolutely,
oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Well, we are surrounded by a mikvah, the ocean. It's very easy to get into the mikvah here.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
helps. Yeah, but the thing is, what we did, we both learn Torah now, lead services.
Teach Hebrew.
Donald's taught Hebrew. I teach beginner biblical Hebrew. We just we took what we got from Temple Israel and we just went from there.
Bravo,
So
well done.
yeah, and it's been every Shabbat is pure joy for us. Of course, now we went hybrid for 4 weeks. Oh no, 8 weeks. We're a hybrid on Zoom. Now we're back on Zoom. But the joy we get from the Jewish community here is as much as we get back. So we're just loving it.
Well,
Love it.
and one surprising thing about the Jewish community here in Hawaii is because we're isolated in the middle of the Pacific and we're on an island, nobody really speaks ill of other people because everybody is related to everybody else on the island. You don't talk about the criminals because that could be the cousin of the police chief. It's like a giant small town.
Yeah, it is.
So, but the flip side of that is there is far more mixing amongst the various congregations, even though they're of different denominations.
So
We're close to Chabad. We're close to the 2 Reform temples that are here, and we're also close with Aloha Jewish Chapel, which is out on one of the military bases.
So it's different in that all the congregations, we have 2 Reform. One is a break off from the main Reform. Okay,
Go figure.
go figure that would happen, that a group would break off from a synagogue. But we have communication. We have like triple membership in Hawaii.
And that's very common.
We are all one Jewish community, even though some have Shabbat Friday, like Temple Emmanuel, the Reformed Temple, and Oahu Jewish Ohana has Friday. We are the only conservative synagogue on Oahu, and I believe the only one in Hawaii that's affiliated with the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism. So we hold that down, and then Chabad takes out the Torah on Shabbat. But other than that, on Oahu, this is where we're at, and we take this very seriously. We're on triannual cycle. We start at 9:50, we finish at noon, and we have an hour onik, which used to be a potluck. So
If you
Could I add? I
Yes.
want to add something to the question, in response to the question. The Armstrongs are underselling themselves. They have been pure leadership inspiration. As I was thinking about an answer to the question, I was thinking about all their accomplishments. I can't think of them all, but I know that they actually began and established a burial group here, which was no small task. We were running out of space to bury our brethren, and Don and Sandy took the bull by the horns and led us into a terrific burial plot, which is called Abraham's Garden. They have also been uniting the whole Jewish community here and have added to membership of all the groups. And they have been, Sandy particularly has been an inspiration during this COVID-19 spell we've had in establishing how we're going to stay together and how we're going to be performing our rituals and remaining as active Jewish participants.
Thank you, Matt, for those words.
Thank you, Matt. That's very kind, very
Now,
kind.
if you would have ever told me that I would have a Torah in my living room 30 years ago, I'd said you were nuts. But never say never. We not only look at it, we actually use it. So
Yeah, so, yeah,
Hawaii has been very, very good to me.
yeah, it does. And like I said, everything we learn, and of course, Matt was very gracious in what he said, but you know, it was just, we got our training. We got our passion for Judaism from Temple Israel. And that's what we want to today give back to you all, whether you're there, because like Chaim and Denise, they're far away too, but we had that going. We all had that going, and that you're continuing this at Temple Israel is
Yeah.
so beautiful. I mean, I think Eli and Frankie were some of the first people we ever met.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I believe, yeah.
Now,
Okay, you go.
we're gonna jump off our thing and go right to what happened next.
Yeah, the epilogue.
Yeah, the Green Apple. What happened in the next 18 years, right?
Can I say?
Yeah, 18 years. Yes. Oh, Michael has a
I
question. Wait.
just want to say, what's his name? Mitch, the guy?
Matt.
Matt. I just want to say to Matt that Sandy and Don also really understated the effect they had on the Jewish community here in Ridgewood. Particularly, I think they'll recall on me, because I resisted a lot of things that Sandy attempted to impose, such as forcing me to be kosher, which I didn't want to do. And I'm sure Don, and if Bob Zeller's still on, and who was the third participant in that bet that I lost so badly, but luckily Sandy wouldn't let Don cash the check. But she's a force of nature, so we know what you're talking about when it comes to her zealousy.
Yeah, a lot of boiling water went up there. I don't know, for a year or two. A lot of houses went kosher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a beautiful
Yeah,
time.
but I can remember we also started with a handful of sukkahs. And
Oh, yeah,
the
remember?
Sukkot, by the end, we had like 30 on the sukkah.
On the
Sukkah
Sukkah
tour.
tour, remember?
Oh, sure.
There were-
Sure.
There were like 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden
They were everywhere.
they were
But I do
everywhere.
think that some of the elders of the synagogue, our generation, may recall one of the first memories of the Camp Ramah retreats that we would go on when Don would lead the hikes. And at one point, he suddenly nonchalantly bends over and picks up this like 6-foot snake. And he holds it up to show everybody. And you see all these Jews running in 20 different directions. And everybody's yelling, which one isn't Jewish? Can anybody spot the guy who's not Jewish? And you could, because it was the guy holding the snake. That was Camp Ramah, probably how many years ago?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. That's
That's
when I was
not-
informed that Jews don't do snakes.
Was it Ben that said that? Somebody said that. Anyway, oh my gosh, we had such funny times, right? All right, so Don's going to tell you about some of the stuff.
What happened to us?
Oh, well, okay, Donald worked construction, so I'll let him tell you. He came here, he was on Wall Street, never changed a light bulb in the house. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, I did all my
I got-
construction with a pen.
I had Michael come over to change the light. No, I'm only kidding. Or Joe, maybe. But anyway, we move here, we have to pick up medical insurance, right? Donald's working alongside the people, the company, Richards Construction, who's expanding the back of our lanai, so we have an extended porch. So Donald says, and Donald's around, he says, I might as well help you. So Richard says, great.
Yeah,
help
and,
us.
and we changed the contract to time and materials, and I was actively involved, so I could make sure we were working well, and it worked out great for both of us. Uh, but at the end of the day, that was quite an abrupt shift. But after 4.5 years, I actually knew something, and despite when he first said, "No, Don, you can't be serious about doing construction." I said, what do you mean? He says, "Well, you're way overqualified." Okay. The first thing is you don't do drugs. The second thing is you know how to measure. The third thing is you can do math and geometry. The fourth thing is I can trust you with a credit card and the key. So why don't you just, learn the business and then start running my jobs and doing my estimates
so
and
you
that
did.
kind of stuff. And so that's what I did.
Let me tell them about it. So one time, Richard, we would get together with him. There were some of the few people we met originally, and he goes, Donald's in the middle of the road there, and he's jackhammering with that hard hat, and there's a lot of people looking at him, meaning the ladies like him. I go, oh no, those commercials where the Tide commercial, whatever it is, the amount of dirt and everything that came off him every day, put in the machine was like, whoa, like nothing. So, okay. So anyway, he stops working construction only when I go and become a special education teacher here in Hawaii. So I decided I already had been home and volunteering and raising the kids.
And I have to tell you, her medical benefits as a union teacher in Hawaii were the best I've ever seen.
Yeah. So I was an emergency hire. Then they had a combination program with the Department of Ed of Hawaii, actually put me through a 2-year cohort and with Chaminade University, and I got my teaching special ed degree. And I went into Head Start preschool, and I was the DOE teacher. I had 6 special needs children and 14 regular ed. And I taught
You did that for 10 years?
I did it for 10 years, and he was retired. Okay, so I'm doing all the tourists, like our friends are visiting while he's working construction. I retire, and he's taking everybody around now. And I'm going, this is great. And Irene can tell you one time, tell him where he took you that one time that you thought it was so great.
He took me to the dump, his favorite place.
Yeah, but this is a dump in Hawaii
Chickens.
with wild pigs and chickens and all kinds of stuff.
And then how about that? You wanted to go to the beach or the surfing experience with the gate?
Oh, it made me climb this like 25-foot wall to get to the beach. And I'm on top of it. And this young girl walks by and says, "Oh, you wanted to get in? Here's a key."
So I come back from, because I said, I think the kids and Artie were scuba diving, whatever. I come back and go, Irene, how was your day? She goes, it was so interesting. So anyway, he was tour director. So you can imagine the first couple of years we were here, a lot of visitors, a lot of family and friends. It's been a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the formative things that I don't think was in the book was I had not yet, I've been here about 4.5 years. And I was 3 weeks from having stopped working my construction job, and I went on a hike with a neighbor. And near our house, there is a 3-peak hike with a series of ridge trails. So we go all the way up, get to the highest peak. It goes from intermediate to intermediate plus to expert. We get up to the expert one, the last 10 to 15 feet, you have to go up a sheer rock face. So I look at the rope and everything looks good. I get up to the top. We have a little tea and breakfast and that kind of stuff. And then on the way down, I can't quite reach the ridge line. I'm about 3 feet off, and I was too lazy to climb all the way back. So I said, okay, I'll just rappel down one little hop. Well, I hopped, the rope snapped, and I went over the side. And I fell 24 feet, and it was like one of those little cartoons. I got wedged between the cliff face and a strawberry guava tree, which had maybe a 3 to 4 inch trunk. I was amazed that I was still alive because I could have fallen another 600 feet. Long story short, obviously I survived. We weren't going to tell Sandy, but it was such an adrenaline rush that after it went down, I finally fessed up. And of course, she said, you should never have gone hiking with her. I told you, she walked out of Iran. She's a mountain goat. You're not.
Don't
I
hike.
I got an earful. And, but then 2 weeks later, Bernice Lippman, who was then coming into her 10th term as president, said, hey, why don't you be my vice president? I said, okay. I'm feeling like, I need to give something back since I just used up my 9th life. And then,
You did.
so I did. And then 10 years later, I finally said, hey, it's time for somebody else to be president.
Yeah,
And
it's
guess who
about to
got
be.
elected?
Yeah, because it was all here in the house anyway, so, yeah. So then Donald had, and this is all part of the epilogue too, it was a very interesting epilogue. He also had a major surgery 11
yeah.
years ago.
Oh yeah, it was excitement. I got all my old people stuff out of the way in a hurry. I had a quadruple bypass, and then a year later I had a stroke, and now I play tennis 3 times a week and 18 holes of golf 3 times a week, and life is good.
Yeah.
And I go to the beach, I go to synagogue, and thank my lucky stars.
Yeah, so,
It all worked out, and it allows us to do some exciting stuff. One of the things that was surprisingly gratifying to me was starting up the cemetery. There was, as Matt mentioned earlier, a lack of Jewish burial space. Sandy and I couldn't be buried side by side. And since I negotiated real estate deals for a living back on Wall Street, I said, how hard can it be? Well, it was pretty hard because I started out with all 4 temples on Oahu and ended up, that was like managing cats in a bag. And then I went to my congregants, the congregation Sof Ma'arav, and between myself and pre-commitments by them, we got the minimum number to get started. We formed a long-term relationship with Hawaiian Memorial Cemetery Park. And now we're 120 plots later, of which about almost 2/3 have been sold. And we're looking to expand even further. As I said, it sounds kind of ghoulish, but it's not, because you're able to provide services to the folks that are dying and services to the families who are grieving. And in Hawaii, intermarriage is it's a fact of life. It's even more prevalent than on the mainland. So we have taken steps to accommodate intermarriage in our cemetery, and we educate the non-Jewish surviving spouse and try to make that process as understandable and as comfortable yet halakhically correct as possible.
yeah,
And it's been very satisfying work.
we have a family section, we have a Jewish section and a family section.
But we permit contiguous burial.
Yeah, so, but you know what, there's something that I do want to share that I'm just part of what Donald said right after in the chapter with his conversion, but I think it's just awesome because it really speaks of Temple Israel. But read that.
Well, in an interview back in 2003, just before we moved, in the Ridgewood News, I said that except for certain questions of faith, our religions were grounded in the same traditions. So it was not too difficult for me to make the change, converting to Judaism. At first, I took mostly part in the temple's social activities, but gradually I became more attracted to the spiritual aspects as well. I wanted to participate more and more in the synagogue, and my goal was to be able to read from the Torah someday. And that goal was achieved.
Yeah, that's so. So, does anybody have any questions or anything they want us to talk about? Like Barry, thank you for that. Irene has her hand up. Yeah.
How much of your previous Jewish upbringing played into, or did any of it play into the rest of your life before you were married, before you came to Ridgewood?
I'll answer quickly for me, none.
No, I'm asking about the Judaism part.
That was easy. Okay. You know, so when, and I'm glad that Corn Blitz are on, because we lived in Leonia when we were first married. We got married at 23. The apartment complex is right across the street for the Congregation Sons of Israel.
Right.
It was a conservative congregation in Leonia. And there was a young couples club there. And we joined the young couples club because we could, even as intermarried. And Susan, the Corn Blitz, that's where we met the Corn Blitz. Like,
Yeah.
we were there together. And then all of a sudden they show up in Ridgewood, like what, 15, 20 years later or something like that. How many years later did you move to Ridgewood? You're muted. Yeah. You have to unmute.
So Steve and I grew up in Leonia. We never had we never were paid members of Leonia because
Our parents.
it was our parents that were members. So when we moved we actually live in Waldwick, we continued to go to Leonia because that's where we went for all the holidays to be with our parents.
Where we got married.
Where we got married, we were like the poster children for Leonia because
USY.
yeah, we met in the USY and we got married in the temple. So the rabbi for like years and years later would always tout the USY. This couple met there, they got married there, and yeah, and then transferred that to Ridgewood, and we loved Temple Israel. We loved when we walked in Temple Israel and we saw that the temple itself looked physically just like Congregation Sons of Israel in Leonia. And then we met Noah Marins and we never looked anywhere else. We were hooked, line and sinker. And we also have great memories. We weren't as active, I think, as you guys and some of the people on, but the Hebrew school was wonderful. We learned, well, when Adam started his Hebrew school lessons, I learned with Louis Messalam. I don't know if anybody else remembers him. And he was, I think I was just shy. I didn't want to go in any of the group lessons, but I wanted to learn along with the kids as they were learning. And Marvin Amsterdam, I remember, was, because I was bat mitzvahed for the first time, and he was the gabbai, was in the trailer when they were doing the construction. And it was, we really, Temple Israel.
And we got to watch you, Sandy, as the new members chair.
Look at her go.
Yeah, those cold calls, boy. You didn't say no to Sandy.
But,
If I can, I'd like to comment on that, because the first connection that I had with Temple Israel was the day when I got a phone call from Sandy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a musician. I'm not interested. I was like, well, oh yeah? Oh yeah. I was like, oh, well, no, actually the president plays, what do you play? Bass clarinet or something like that? He was a musician. She said, come down on and meet. And it was like, oh, okay. Irene and I went down. And as they say, the rest is history.
That's awesome. Michael has something.
Yeah.
Michael?
Am I unmuted? I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sandy, as
Can you
your
mute yourself, please?
publicity agent for the book, I haven't read it in a while, but didn't the first chapter, I mean, Don talked about his near-death experience. My recollection is your first chapter of your book, which sort of introduced, I thought, the basis for your Judaism was your experience, your medical experience as a child.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I moved it. We met the first chapter. You're right. I switched it at one point because it was funny how we met at Rutgers. And then I put the next chapter, I didn't die. And thank you for bringing it up, Michael. Deborah Hospital in Browns Mills, New Jersey saved my life. I was born with a ventricle septic defect. At the time, when I was born in 1954, they didn't have the technology to repair this. And the doctor said, we hope by the time she's 5 years old, we'll have the technology. And there was Dr. Charles Bailey, who I actually saw his instruments in the medical section of the Smithsonian, and probably some of the instruments that he used to operate on me. He was one of the pioneers in open heart surgery, and he was at Hanneman's, and then he went over to Hanneman's in Pennsylvania, and then he went over to Deborah in Browns Mills, New Jersey. He had a few surgeries before me. I was number 8 in the lineup. I had a 50-50 chance of survival. I remember, to this day, I remember being wheeled off into the operating room. I really remember this. My mother was hysterical. And I remember thinking, I don't know much about life. I'm 5. I knew that. I go, but this is really, really bad for my mother. So, I was praying that I would live. And somehow I knew I was going to get through it, call it God, call it that experience. And we'll talk about some blissful experiences in our lives. That was what happened to me at 5. I say in the chapter that there was so much blood donated to me, like 50 pints or something had to be donated. And my father was part of the Jewish war veterans. They had a whole bus ready. They didn't have the mechanism to save all the blood like they do today. So they had to be ready to donate. And now it's only 2 pints of blood for the same surgery. So that was the backup. So I say in the book, I really don't know where my blood is. There's such a mixture of so many people's blood in my body. I don't know where my blood begins and theirs starts, or vice versa. And I really felt that way. And you'll see a slide later of my involvement with the Blood Mobile and the blood bank here in Hawaii for that reason.
And talk about a small world. When we were sitting in Shabbat services, the person next to us, Paul, yeah, actually designed the heart-lung machine that was used in that surgery.
Okay.
So she got to, got all the specifics as to what went where, but what are the odds of that going to happen
in Hawaii?
The guy in Hawaii, this member of the congregation is sitting right next to us who did the machine.
Yeah, it must have been the anniversary of my surgery, and I was describing it, and he comes up to me in the ONEG room and he goes, I was one of the designers in South Africa, and this is what they did with your blood. It went like this, and I was like, I'm going to pass out. I'm just going to pass out now. But I mean, we've had coincidences like that here. Like, for instance, there's another Don Armstrong on the island.
Yeah, go figure. And he's Jewish.
There's a Jewish Don Armstrong on the island. We found out through something else. He has a Jewish meetup group. One of my friends Gmails me and she goes, is this your Don? And I went, oh my gosh, what's happening here onto our lives? So
Another one emailed me and said, I told this guy, you're not Don Armstrong. I know Don Armstrong.
yeah. So fortunately, there's a phone number. Donald's not home, and I'm starting to panic. Like, I don't know what's going on here. And I call him up. He's such a nice guy, born in Chicago area, mother Jewish, father not, last name Armstrong, and lived here, went to school here for a while, and is back here. And he goes, yeah, I was meeting somebody for the Jewish meetup, and he said, I'm Don Armstrong. And then the guy says, no, you're not. I know who Don Armstrong is. So anyway, we got him on a Zoom call, during services. And we had both of them on at the same time. It was so funny. So we have double.
He's a nicer guy than I am.
It's double.
Bob Dworkin has a question for you, Sandy. Bob Dworkin has a question.
Yeah, Bob.
I'm fascinated by your story. It's just wonderful. And I congratulate you for all of your accomplishments. My question is, do you guys have any kind of interfaith events with other religious groups in your area?
Yeah, well, Donna was very involved in the faith.
Yeah, it's called FACE, the acronym for Faith Action for Community Equity. It is basically doing good works and working on the politics in Hawaii of getting more affordable housing, impacting the immigration laws, all those sorts of things, which is an interfaith issue. And that organization has 70 different institutions and is a formidable voting bloc now. So
That was why you were president.
yeah, and that was during my presidency.
He actually had a seminar for like 3 or 4 days where they
Yeah.
all got together and had.
It was kind of interesting because the people that hosted the seminar was Gamaliel, and that was the same group that trained Barack Obama for his community organizing. So that was their claim to fame. So Michael, I see you're holding your head.
Barry Freeman has a question. Barry, you have a question?
Yeah,
Okay,
a brief
Barry.
question. Bear with me. This is Jewish geography on Oahu. I have a lifelong friend, a fellow lieutenant from the Army from the late 1960s, who went to Hawaii, went to Oahu, met a wonderful woman and got married, and he's living there now on Old Pali Drive. Sandy and Jill Kwok Friedman, but they're not active in the Jewish community, even though Sandy's son was bar mitzvahed in London, England, where he was attending a private school. Do you have any?
What was
Sandy?
their last?
The last name is Friedman, Friedman. No relation to me, except a buddy from the military.
Cool.
Sandy will take care of that. Don't you worry.
Yeah, no, I want you to go after him. Sandy, I'm counting on you.
Yeah.
In fact, they're right near the Reform Temple as you go up the hill on Old Pali Drive.
Yeah, that's.
Matt
where-
Sagan used to live right there.
Matt used to live right there. That's why I asked for their names, because he might have known.
Okay.
Matt
Okay.
Sagan.
I didn't think you did, but I couldn't resist asking.
Absolutely.
No,
It's a small island.
you know,
Yes,
one thing.
yes,
Matt,
everything you said is true.
You know the Friedmans?
Yes, I do. I don't know them well, but they were neighbors and we did wave to each other when I drove out of my driveway.
There-
Do you
it's
see
been
that?
fun.
Sandy, believe me, you've got your work cut out for you. I don't know if even you can succeed in this one. Good luck.
No, I predict she can. I really
Okay, all right, good. That's good. I like people of faith.
Just another heads up that they spend half the time in Singapore with one of their kids and 4 grandchildren.
Yeah, we have a lot of that going here. I do want to say something that's very different about being on the island that was different. For me, I grew up in New Jersey, went to Rutgers, the whole thing, right? All the family nearby. When we moved here, and Donald already had experienced this before as a preteen and a teenager. The island is a conglomeration of every single ethnic and religious segment, whatever you would say, in a beautiful way, that yes, we all have different areas. Like when I was teaching, my friends would say, well, they would have services on Sunday. And then I could explain to them, well, my services are on Saturday. But it's a lot of people are observant here in many ways. And they're also
Yeah, what I would say when people ask me to describe Hawaii is sort of maybe 20 to 30 years behind the rest of the world, the rest of the United States. And the reason, and I don't say that as a negative thing. They still do proms here. They still do, high school football. They're very religious, irrespective of, what their religions are, and they are increasingly tolerant. So it's just, it's a function of being on an island where nobody can hide, nobody cannot hear.
And the populations, which is fabulous. Like I got to know people from Micronesia, from the Philippines, all kinds of people, access to different people. And to tell you the truth, I was the outsider for the first time. I'm sitting at the lunch table at school, and I knew they had finally accepted me as being blonde and blue-eyed and Caucasian. And they were talking about another special ed teacher. She goes, she's from the mainland, she's new, da 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 da. And I'm like sitting among them, and I go, oh my gosh, that could be me. And they just all burst out laughing at the table, because at that point, we no longer saw our faces, we knew who we were.
Yeah.
So having that experience,
I was going to say,
having that experience was transforming here.
would you like to show any of your slides at this time?
Oh yeah,
that'd be
sure.
great.
Okay, here's some slides we put together. I do want to bring out one. Matt might want to come back on, because Matt wrote a book. Okay, so we'll come to that, but I do want to say that Matt's book is up here too. So, okay, An Ocean Away. Thank you, Robert. I don't see any slide.
Hang on,
It's
I gotta make it work.
I'm muted.
Don't worry about
Come
it.
on.
Oh, okay.
Hey, there we go.
Okay, so it is, it does have labeling. This is Tammy. Tammy lives on a farm that we purchased in Waimanalo. That's the town next to us. But it's more like a farm community. And anyway, Tammy lives in a series of tiny houses. So that's one of the tiny houses.
There are 3 on the
on the
property,
property.
in addition to a 3-bedroom
Main
house,
house.
which is in the back.
Okay, so this was something that we did at the time I was teaching, and a lot of negotiations with Donald and Tamara and a good friend, and it happened. So
Yeah.
okay,
And it's also a taro farm and a cacao farm.
yeah, they're gonna see that. Okay,
Okay.
next. Okay, this is also in Waimanalo. Tamara said, Mom, the sunflower fields are open. And I just wanted to show you how breathtaking this was. They're about 6 to 7 feet tall. They have several of these pathways. And in the background, you're going to see the Ko'olau mountain range, which really circulates around the whole part of where we
Encloses, yeah,
encloses where we live. Like we're living in a caldera.
Yeah, what the island of Oahu once was one giant volcano, and half of the caldera collapsed into the sea. And the Koa Mountains are the left half, and they separate the windward side, the side in which the wind
live.
comes in, the side where we live, from the south side, which is where Waikiki and Honolulu are.
So going over the Pali, which we go over to get to Waikiki, is really far for us because we're so provincial. If you drive 2 hours, you're going to go into the ocean that way, or that. It doesn't matter. It's not like the mainland. So if you drive over the Pali, man, you are going far that day.
Mhm.
So it's really a whole different concept of proximity. Okay, next one. Okay, this is the farm that we're talking about. In the back are the cacao trees. I didn't, yeah, in the back.
I'm going to show them. Okay, we'll start. That's a coconut palm
Yeah,
right there. Okay, these are all cacao trees. And trying to see if
You
I can
can't-
find a fruit. I can't really find a fruit. These big ones back here are banana trees. And sneaking down under here, since this picture was taken, there are now 7 more ponds, but that's a taro pond
okay.
underneath. And then this is just tea leaves. And everything in the whole approach to gardening in Hawaii is very different. You garden with a cutting tool of some kind because nothing dies. You simply cut it, stick it in the ground, and it will regrow.
You know, when we moved to Hawaii and this whole idea of cacao, I thought chocolate came from like the Hershey bar, like that was it. But I learned that it actually comes from a seed, and I've watched the whole, been through the whole process, and it's magnificent, and it's really a good healthy
And if
food.
you want to learn about chocolate, you can go to on the internet, Manoa Chocolate, and they have all kinds of short videos that talk about the chocolate production process, both in Hawaii and around the world.
Yeah, it's called craft chocolate. Okay.
Craft Chocolate TV.
Yeah, anyway, after Waimanalo, we're next. All right, that's the beach that we walked to.
That's 5 minutes from our house.
Yeah, we walked there.
We're spoiled.
Yeah, and it could be whatever going on around. You go to this beach and the sand is as soft as you can actually imagine on your feet. And so it's a massage just to walk there. And this is on a pretty calm day. And we usually have skies like that. And that really is the color. So,
Okay, next.
okay, next. Oh, I was playing golf.
You remember which course you're on? Olamana?
Yeah, it looks like Olamana. I play on several golf courses here, but I thought, why not? Yeah, so that's fun. Golf is fun. Okay, here's the picture of, this was one of Tiffany's friends, and he had just given blood. That's my picture, but you probably don't recognize me. First of all, what do you call it? It's right through my eyes. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Some
crease.
real.
But anyway, that is me. They spent a lot of time doing makeup and everything. What they are, they right next to me was a donor. His picture, I think he had donated. For like 40 years he was donating. So they had recipient, donor, recipient, donor. I being a recipient at 5 years old of all the blood, and I had spoken a couple of times for on behalf of the blood bank. They asked me to be, and they had just inaugurated, I guess you say, this new blood mobile. So we were there at the dedication.
At the dedication.
So it just happened to come into Kailua at the same time that Justin and I were giving blood, and we took a picture. But the first time I saw it, I went, "Oh my gosh, that."
Yeah, but you have a history of supporting that.
Yeah.
Deborah Hospital.
Okay, here's Matthew's book. Matthew. So look, Torah and Tarot. Okay.
What's it about, Matt?
Well, it's about, the subtitle tells it all. It's about Jewish contributions to Hawaii. And I went through, it began as a testimony for our little congregation, Sof Marav, which we've talked about. And I did a research on that group because I was very impressed. I came from Boston and I had a fairly good Jewish education, but I've learned so much from my experience at Sof Marav. I wanted to give back. So when Don was president, I suggested we write a history of the congregation because it would be valuable for us and hopefully for others. And Don was supportive. And so I went ahead and did the research on that book, and that was called Honey and Poi. And then as a result of doing that research, I went to a lot of libraries and traveled around the whole state and went to Brigham Young University and read about the missionaries and the monarchs, etc. I suddenly began to discover that many, many, many people, although very small in number, Jewish people, had contributed immensely to all the movements that represented Hawaii. And so I decided that the book Torah and Taro would tell about those contributions to Hawaii. I also had a little bit of a premonition that, there's a development of anti-Semitism nowadays, and that if we can talk about some positive things, may be very helpful for our relationship to our neighbors. So all those things went into the idea of writing this book, and I was able to accomplish it. And I've had sessions about it, et cetera, et cetera.
And that picture of the Torah, where did you get that picture from?
Oh, yeah. That was, as Don mentioned, he never thought he'd be living with a Torah. So I said, well, we're going to put it to some good use. And I went up there, and Sandy and I unrolled it and put the talus on it. And that is a Apple picture. You can work wonders these days.
Yeah, literally, it was during like the middle of COVID, and I said, I got to take the picture. He goes, I got to take it. My editor wants it like, in 2 days. I said, oh, okay. So then he goes, like after it was printed, everything, he goes, oh, by the way, that's your Torah up there. So, and then the taro, of course, was taro here in the islands, and for the Hawaiian people, they knew how nutritious it was. And that's why taro fields are really, really important. In fact, it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Sandy. A taro, just like the Torah, has a special kind of spiritual significance for the Hawaiian people. That's why I thought of it when I was thinking of. I also thought of the alliteration, but I'm mostly about the tradition that taro has for the Hawaiian people, just as the Torah has for the Jewish people.
Nice.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. Anyway, it's a great book, and it does describe the history of them first coming over on ships and everything like that. Anyway, good job. Thanks, Matt, for being here.
Thank you, Sandy, Don.
Yeah. Oh, you can guess what that is. Yeah.
That's a Hawaiian sukkah.
Yeah.
And that's our backyard.
Yeah. So sukkah took on a whole new element here in Hawaii, because it's really 99% of the time, it's really nice weather to sleep in there at night. We used to have a lot of, before all this, our shutdown, a lot of sukkah parties.
Yeah.
And a lot of shaking of the lulav and etrog. And anyway, that's an expanded form. It's more like an apartment. We had a bedroom behind the flag there. You could sleep there on your mat. And then we had
an entertaining area.
That was an expanded. Yeah, I think that's it for the slides, right? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, this is where you can see what that is.
This was my effort to sell cemetery plots by adding some cheesecake.
Oh, that's very funny. Ha ha ha.
Did it work?
I think so.
We each took pictures, and
she liked hers better.
I like my picture better. So. But we were out there one day, we took pictures, and I go, anyway, I think, yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh, here's another one.
Oh, you didn't tell me about this one.
Don in our backyard pond, Donald's pond maintenance guy.
Yeah, I have fish and turtles in there, and the dog is Tiffany's dog, who, since they're both working, we get both their respective dogs,
That is so fun.
and
party time.
it's never a dull moment in our backyard.
But anyway, so Donald really, we have a turtle back there. He really enjoys this part of
Yeah.
gardening. And he built that pond himself, which was like, oh, wow. When he said he was going to do it, he did it.
Yeah, but by then I had skills. I had construction skills.
Yeah, that's scary. Anyway, so I think that's all for our picture. So are there any other questions or comments that I know Joe Wexler is on. Joe, unmute yourself. Tell us where you are
Hi.
right now.
I'm in right now. Hey guys, hey everyone. Good to see everybody. I'm in Chandler, Arizona. Right now. I'm right near Phoenix. I'm in the desert. I'm a Jew.
Love it.
I'm a New Jersey devil in the desert. That's where I am. As a matter of fact, I'm at my synagogue, and they really don't need me. We're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, and the high holidays. It's like it's going to be kind of a limited service. So what they're doing, and that's why Sandy came. She was watching part of this. What she's doing, I'm in one of the Hebrew school rooms, and what they're doing is they're just testing the sound. So it's going to be a hybrid service. It's going to be about 10 or 11 of us here, and the rest will be on Zoom. That's what we're doing. So how you guys doing? You look great.
We're hoping that we can do that here.
Great. Good to see everybody.
What synagogue is? What
It's
synagogue
called
is it?
Temple Beth Shalom of the Eastern Valley. And it's a nice show. We found actually it's kind of like Temple Israel. It's very Hamish. It's a smaller congregation. It's about 150 families, and we've been here almost 6 years. We came here right before Rosh Hashanah. We went to a Friday night service. They were very nice. They welcomed us in. Like you, everyone. Well, I didn't have to worry about that at Temple Israel. I became a member in 1962. My parents were there, joined in 56. But it was so nice. They were very nice, and we become members. And 2 or 3 years later, I thought I was done with it. I got suckered in. I'm in the men's club.
Is it a
Well, actually, it's one good thing. I kind of been milking. I mean, I'm trying to find a successor, but I have been milking it out because I go to the conventions and I get a really good stipend, so it's not bad. No, it's nice. It's not my religion. It's not my spiritual. It's not how much money I can see. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a nice congregation, and I see all the Jersey. I miss you guys, and I also miss all the Jersey guys. And I was, Don, you've become a good example. I followed you as the softball captain, which is great. And I'm still happy to see we've got some trophies in the lobby in New Jersey. So hopefully I didn't make it back. I didn't have time, unfortunately. I was back for July 4th, but I'm coming back Thanksgiving. So I hope we get to spend a Shabbat morning at the show. But it's great to see you all. You guys have been great. It's fun. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about you. I hear from Michael, and it's good. But it's happy. I'm happy to see all the faces here. It's great. This is an honor. It's like, wow, I got to get on it. And I'm off today. I'm still working, but I'm off today. So
you're off today. See, in Hawaii, we go like this.
Oh yeah.
This is the shaka.
Well, what's funny is that your state, not my state, has one thing in common. We don't have daylight savings time. I wish we did.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We don't have.
I think because you guys are, you're almost you're about 3 hours behind me. I'm 3 hours behind now. I should be 2 hours behind because we're mountain time. It's very confusing. Only during daylight savings time. Well, actually, only when it's not daylight savings time, we're mountain. But it's nice.
It's so good to hear from you, Joe. What I was saying about the shaka in Hawaii, we don't honk. We don't honk horns.
When you're driving.
When you're driving. So
good. That's very nice.
Yeah.
And when people let you in, you give them the little shaka sign.
Oh, that's cool. That's very nice. Yeah. Instead of even waving. I like that. It's good. I wish they would Well, they're not too bad out here, but they do their honking out here. But that's not, I'll start doing this. And I'm sure they'll find another finger to give me, but I don't know. But we'll see.
Sandy and Don, I think before we lose our audience, if you'd like to sum up your presentation this evening, if there's any last words or thoughts, please share them with us.
Can I say something or not? I just want to tell a quick story.
Michael, jump in, Michael.
I just want to say one quick thing. Can
Oh,
I?
yeah.
Am I on?
Yes.
So about 12 years ago, I think it was, Joe and I decided to head out to Hawaii and see if we could sponge off the Armstrongs for about 2 weeks, which we did. But the funny thing was that just before we got there, Sandy sends us an email. We were just confirming everything. And she puts in the email sort of casually, "That's great that you're coming. Don should be completely recovered from his quadruple bypass." So we got there like within about a week or two after Don had gotten his bypass, which meant two things. He couldn't drive a car and he couldn't take care of his chickens. So he asked me to help take care of his chickens. And so for those of you who are online who get some of our eggs, because I then got my own chickens, you can thank Don for training me in the art of chicken farming, because I liked it. But the other thing was, after spending about 2 weeks there, I said to Don, and I don't know if he remembers this, but I said, "I don't think where you live is that much different than Ridgewood." Believe it or not, I'm serious. Aside from the weather, it's a bedroom community of Honolulu in the same way that Ridgewood is a bedroom community of New York City. And I think that the mentality of the people there was somewhat similar. I mean, as a suburban kind of feeling that, everybody knew their neighbors and very nice community, but and you still had your downtown of your own town where you would go for your basic needs like we do. But if you wanted to go to a museum or the theater, you'd go into Honolulu.
Yep.
So I thought it was somewhat similar. But let me also say this. Joe Wexler needs a shave.
Okay, all right, so I wish we had more time, we could all speak, because this is so great. But I do want Donald to, he did give a speech about, at the testimonial.
This one?
Yeah. And so-
Okay, I concluded my speech at the testimonial when I basically said, I have 18 years of memories that are too numerous to enumerate tonight, but since my time is limited, let me get right to the heart of the matter. As a married Jew, and that's when I just got Jewishly married, it's difficult to understand how or why it works, but it does. You're not always on the same page as your spouse, but she'll be sure to tell you. You hear her commandments, but they're hard to follow. Your wisdom and love can only grow with years of hard work. Like Torah, my marriage has been and will be a constant source of joy and wonder. As Sandy and I renew our vows, I feel truly blessed. I have the love of family, friends, and community. What king could ask for more? Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate with us. And those sentiments are as timely now as they were then.
Yeah.
We thank you very much for taking time out of your afternoon and sharing some memories as well as how things are going in Hawaii. And it's a window, as Michael said, that we can share and appreciate with both communities having that same sense and values. And Sandy's enthusiasm, energy, and dynamism certainly percolates out in Hawaii. And we can see that you and Don have made a positive difference in their world. Certainly Matt was supportive of that, and it was delightful to hear. And we can take some comfort in knowing that you were a transplant whose seeds in the Ridgewood community got transferred as far west as Hawaii. And you folks have the pleasure at the end of Yom Kippur, to closing the book as far this
Right, we do.
as possible, because you're as far west as possible can be before the book is closed. And it's delightful to have you and know you and to experience this opportunity for visiting with our community again. So Temple Israel, on behalf of Temple Israel and on myself and the synagogue, want to thank you for your time and effort to share with us. And we are recording this so we can put this on our website. Stacy Scott will make sure that it gets there, so people who might have missed it can go back and see this conversation that we did with all the friends and family and members. So we appreciate you and salute you. And I'm sure that we're all going to stop by in Hawaii and say hello when we make our visits out there and look you up, knowing that your door is always open. So we're delighted. So thank you very, very much. And I want to thank everyone who participated tonight from all corners of the globe. And I do mean that if the globe had corners, we're delighted that you were able to participate with us. From Arizona to Australia, from Hawaii to New Jersey, and places in between, this has been a terrific night. Sandy and Don, you're the best.
Good job, Bob. Take care,
We
guys.
wish you all aloha, and we hope to see you soon.
All right, have a great
Well,
evening for us. For us, we're approaching bedtime. For you, it's dinner time. So
Yeah.
enjoy worldwide, whatever time zone you're in.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.